Hey everybody, welcome back to All Things MSP. Today we have a great office hours for you. We have Produce 8 in the house. And if you haven't seen the podcast on this solution, this is a game changer because we're not talking about some big brother, Overwatch, overlord type of productivity tool. We are talking about a personalized productivity coach for each and every one of your employees to help them raise the level of productivity, figure out what they're doing in their day, and be able to improve upon that. I think this is not just something that is a productivity tool for your customers or for yourself, because it can actually be used for both, right? But this is actually a new line of business for you. And as we go through this, my guest today is actually going to talk about this, is how do you build a productivity practice as an MSP for your clients around Produce 8. So let me go ahead and introduce our guest today. Guest is Marco La Vecchia. Marco, how you doing today?
I'm fine, Eric. How are you?
I'm doing great. And, I just really love what it looks like the potential this tool has for the managed services industry, because one of the things that we have to look at from time to time is how does the MSP stay relevant with their clients? And kind of like I said in the intro, I think this is one of those things that is going to give another level of access, of support, of revenue generation to the MSP and to their clients.
Yeah, I think first off, thanks for having me today. It's exciting to have a conversation with you just about what we're doing at Produce 8. But you hit the nail right on the head, right? Like when you talk about how does an MSP remain relevant with their customers, I think we've gotten to the point now where if you take a look at the MSP stack, many MSPs haven't added new solutions or a new offering to their customer in years, right? Like it's one thing to go from one RMM to the next, or a security product to the next, or another backup solution that you're going to introduce to them. But then what is the next step? What is the next evolution for the MSP space? And I think Produce 8 is ahead of the curve currently right now in terms of what we're bringing to market. The idea of what we're trying to do is bring productivity into the MSP space, working with MSPs where they can utilize our technology to see the benefits of what it's going to bring to them. But also, we'll be launching a partner program in the next couple of months where MSPs can actually go drive a new recurring revenue stream with Produce 8 into the market. So very exciting times right now with our company.
Awesome. Now, I know that you've brought some slides today. Do you want me to go ahead and bring those up?
Yeah, please do so. Like we can share them with everybody.
All right, there we go.
So thanks. So maybe what I can do is really kind of talk about, how this product has evolved. Like when we kind of take a look at the industry, this company and our offering a solution is really kind of, it's been built by some MSP titans in the market space. So I'm sure a lot of people know Chris Day, who's founder of many MSP solutions that the industry is using, such as ScalePad and IT Glue. And Mark Scott, who is the founder of Enable Technologies, who I've been working very closely with over the last 7 or 8 years as we built a giant MSP solution that we sold to TELUS a couple of years ago. And Joel Abramson, who's the CEO of Produce 8 and was also the founder and CEO of Fully Managed, a company that Mark Scott acquired. And then obviously, we have Ryan McGinnis, who's a real guru when it comes to kind of productivity and building the solution and technology that we have. And Janice Siddons, who's a wonderful chief operating officer who worked with us at Fully Managed. And the idea of surrounding ourselves with, really good people who understand this MSP space is obviously critical as we go launch this program, because not only, as I mentioned before, do we want MSPs utilizing Produce 8 for their business, but as we launch a partner program, we feel that, we're situated very well in terms of understanding the market, understanding the space, and then also understanding the needs of what MSPs are looking for.
Yeah. And, a lot of people talk about things that are born in the cloud, right? This one is born in the space because, yes, this cast of characters, and I know most of them personally, so I can call them that, really have such a deep background in this space that they understand what it means to bring an offering like this, which may not traditionally be thought of as a play for this space. They're the perfect crew to bring it to this space.
Absolutely. Like even just a couple of weeks ago, we were down at the Empower event, and we had a booth at their event, and we wwere talking about Produce 8. We were talking about what our solution, and a lot of MSPs were obviously very interested because it's a new conversation. They're waiting for somebody to talk to them about the traditional tools that they're using. But when you get into productivity, it's a different conversation. And, the strategy that I would look at it as, from a standpoint of if I'm an MSP and just like up to 4 months ago, I was with an MSP with over, 500 employees, and we were driving sales and stuff like that. We were always trying to talk about what's new that we can introduce to our customers, right? How are we going to grow revenues? If you're not doing acquisition strategies or upsell, cross-sell strategies, your revenues are going to be stagnant. And, majority of MSPs, the way they grow is if the businesses that they support, that they're adding employees. What Produce 8 is going to bring to the table is going to allow those VCIOs, as they go sit down with their customers, to talk about not only IT roadmap, but get into, hey, listen, how are we going to help your employees, and how are we going to get more out of them and ensure that they're happy in terms of their work environment? You mentioned it. Produce 8 is not a monitoring tool, right? The idea of what we're trying to do within this solution is really making sure that we can help people with productivities, to give them insights into their day and how are they working and how do they operate and what does a good day look like. We tend to hire people, bring them on board in any company that you ever worked at, and same thing in anybody that I hired. And you hire them, and then the end result is you hope that whatever job functionality you want them to do, that they're successful in terms of doing it and attaining those goals. But what are all the things that are impacting their day that may be hindering how they're going to be successful? The tools that we use, the applications that employees are using nowadays, all of these collaboration tools are impacting how you work. I take a look at the tools that I used maybe 7 or 8 years ago, 10 years ago. Maybe you were using 2 or 3, maybe 4 at max, and now today, like employees have access to 8 to 12 tools, applications that they're using, and all of these tools are built to cause disruption in your life in terms of how you work. And so what Produce 8 will start doing is the application gives you insight in terms of how that disruption is impacting how you work. Are you focused when you're working? Are you being disrupted throughout the entire day? Are you switching from one application to the next on a regular basis? And every time you do that, there is an impact in terms of how you're working. And so this is really the first, insight that businesses can have and MSPs can have within their business that can help them increase productivity. We've been focusing our business over the last little while around kind of 3 areas that we feel have a direct ROI to any MSP practice. And that's meetings, so most organizations and businesses, people are overwhelmed with meetings on a daily basis, and businesses have no idea how they can improve that or what they can do. Collaboration, issues with all the different tools and technologies that are causing disruption, and a reduction in productivity. And so on those 3 areas, we feel that we can show significant ROI for any MSP practice or any end user business. And then we also feel that we can show them how we can increase productivity that can really save MSPs thousands of dollars a week. Absolutely.
Yep. And this is a tool for both the MSP and for the MSP to provide for their clients. And I think the way that you guys have worded this as a personal coach for the digital workday is a perfect kind of embodiment of what this tool does. And you're right. I mean, so much of our day now is tool distraction because a lot of these tools are built by the same kind of people who built the tools around Facebook and around LinkedIn to capture and keep your attention. And so, this stuff, the way we work has changed, and the tools that we use have kind of adapted to that and tried to get as much attention as they can to keep their tool relevant.
Correct. And then also not having really kind of insight on the impact of how those tools are impacting the organization. Let's take meetings for an example. Prior to, let's say, pre-COVID, and we'll try and put a stake in the ground. Pre-COVID, people were working in the office. In order to have a meeting, they were a lot more structured. You weren't inviting everybody, and there was really kind of the core people that would get into a meeting in a room. And if you can end that meeting in 10 or 15 minutes, everybody would get up and walk out and continue their day. You'd also probably maybe stop by a desk or two and have a quick conversation to get an answer that you need, and you get back to what you need to do. Nowadays, what I refer to as the water cooler conversation turns into a 30-minute meeting that's booked into your calendar. After that, there's another, 2 hours of meetings that are taking place with all kinds of people that are in it. And majority of the time, 80% of people on the call actually don't have anything to say. So what we're trying to do is, through that, it's one thing, like you're seeing a lot of businesses nowadays, what they're trying to do is they're saying, we made a decision that we're not going to let anybody have, more than X amount of meetings on a daily basis, or you can't have more than a certain amount of people in the meeting. That's all great. But for instance, how do you know things are working? Without a technology like Produce 8, you don't get the insights that you need in order to say the changes that we're making in our business are actually working. And so what we're trying to do is really kind of bring a new solution in technology into the space that's going to start giving you those insights of what businesses are looking for to make the what I call better changes in the business that are going to have a severe impact to the bottom line in terms of how they operate.
Yeah, when we were analog in our workday, it was much different. And just like you talked about in terms of meetings and only inviting certain people and it being logistically all, involving the office, this transition to a digital workday has changed the way we fundamentally work. And so we have to have a way of capturing and analyzing how we're doing that work to stay productive.
Making sure that that they're still happy. I think so many of these tools, like you almost feel like you need to be working 24/7 nowadays, right? If you take a look at Teams or Slack or anything like that, the amount of correspondence that's going back and forth, they're great tools if you have a good structure in terms of how they're being used. But if you're working on a daily basis and what you feel is a really good day of logging into Slack 150 times a day because the dopamine in your mind is telling you that I need to go see if I have a message because that's kind of like what gets you excited. But for instance, you notice that your productivity is decreasing because you can't finish, building your marketing slide deck, or you're working on a project and you can never get it completed because you're being distracted all the time. Then all of those things are going to have an impact. Like we start seeing that employee satisfaction scores actually are decreasing, year over year over year, just because, everybody's working from home. They're being consumed, by meetings. Companies are throwing more solutions and technologies in front of them. And at the end of the day, you've been hired to do a certain task and you can't get it done.
Yeah. And, you talk about it on this slide. I think a lot of it comes down to distractions, right? Distractions are one of the big things that has changed in our digital workday. And one of the things that has evolved into or led itself to is task switching. And I love the fact that you guys address that here on this slide. So talk to me more about, because I know there's been a lot of studies and things about task switching and the effects on productivity.
Absolutely. Well, task switching actually the mind takes anywhere between 10 and 15 minutes to reset itself when it starts going from one thing to the next. So, if it's normal, I guess, business practice or how an employee works nowadays, where first thing I do is I'll come in the morning, I'll take a look at my email, I'll look at my Teams channel or Slack channel. I'll take a look at Instagram or what's going on. Then I go to my Twitter, and then I start doing my work, and then I'm not concentrating, right? I'm distracted because maybe I saw something that, upset me or has changed my mood in terms of how I work. As our technology starts working with the businesses and employees, it starts showing you, for instance, what are the changes that you need to make. I like to use the analogy, it's kind of like, a Fitbit for health or a financial application in terms of how I go in and do my online banking. This is not an overwhelming solution or technology, Eric, where businesses have to evaluate it for 6 months. Like if most people, probably listening to this either have an iPod, an iWatch or a Fitbit or something like that, and they're taking a look at number of steps that they're utilizing on a daily basis, how many calories they're consuming, and they might be putting it into their health application. All of these things were just done because they felt that they were going to, some way or another, it was going to help them out in terms of what they do. That's exactly what P8 is. It's not a massive evaluation or overhaul in terms of a technology or solution in terms of how businesses need to kind of bring it in and incorporate it into their daily lives, because they're already utilizing solutions and technologies like this. This all, the only difference is this, the financial application is for your banking, the Fitbit app is for your health, and this is your Fitbit for work.
Yeah. And, applying it to the well-being of the employee, I think, is important. And I think that's where this differs from so many of the, productivity mantras and strategies and all the different things, the tips, the tricks, the hacks, all of those things. This is something that you use to measure where you're at in order to figure out where you want to go with your productivity. Just like a Fitbit would tell you, just like measuring your blood pressure would tell you, just like, using a financial app or a dashboard. We relate this to an MSP. It's just like the dashboard that they put up in their office to be able to see where they are with their monthly goals. It's the same thing, but geared towards productivity.
Absolutely. Let's use that analogy for 1 second, right? If I'm level 2 or level 3 person on the help desk, and I know that, for instance, I can see timelines in terms of how I'm working, when I'm in calls, and when I'm being disrupted, right? And if we start trying to see how, why do certain people within an organization, how come some are more productive than the others, we can start seeing trends with the Produce 8 product that will give us insight into how people work. So now I can go to, that level 2 tech that I have on my desk and work with them to try and improve how they're operating on a daily basis. And so it's about getting those types of insights that maybe most businesses necessarily never had before we came along. We're always, our a big marketing campaign and what we know that we can bring to the table is that with the Produce 8 product, we will show you how you get 90 minutes back in your day. And that's significant. If you can take a look at how across your whole entire business, how we can start removing what I call the loud noise that employees deal with and bring back some time with them, what could we do with those 90 minutes? Like everybody always says, right? Like you've always heard the old adage, you can be in a meeting and there might be a whole bunch of people and everybody always says, how much is this meeting costing us? Well, actually, we'll talk about it in a second, but Produce 8 can actually show you how much those meetings are costing you. But if we can start showing you how you can get 90 minutes back in your day, from an ROI perspective, that's significant. Whether you're a 5-person MSP or you have 50 people that work in your organization, now what we can do is we can reallocate time in terms of how people operate. Like There's no additional hours that are being added to the 24-hour, entire day that we have, right? So we need to try and get some of that time back for people.
Yeah. And really, I want to kind of dial into that 90 minutes a day, because if you look at it from a standard MSP perspective, you have the MSP owner, you have the technicians, you have the salespeople. How many more clients can you get if your salespeople have 90 extra minutes a day? How many more capacity for doing billable work are your technicians going to have if they have an extra 90 minutes a day? And then how much are you, the business owner, going to be able to spend on strategic initiatives in your business if you have an extra 90 minutes a day? Think about those things in the impact.
Absolutely. And I think we can get into the impacts of how this solution impacts the overall organization. How does it impact what I call teams within companies, and then also the employee on an individual basis? The meetings that we see, the meeting overheads, it's actually very, very easy where we can start showing businesses how they can cut, meetings, 30, 40, even 50%. Because once you start kind of looking into it, you start realizing that either some of the meetings are unnecessary, they're too long, or there's no structure. And what we do is we will help MSPs and businesses to give them insight, not only into those meetings, but how those meetings need to be structured. We call it a meeting manifesto. And the idea here is that there are proper ways in terms of businesses, how they should have meetings. But even if you just had the meeting manifesto without Produce 8, you're still not going to get the results that you're looking for, because you need to know, as I mentioned, you need the insights. You need the application to start sharing with you information in terms of how things are working, right? Are we realizing the ROI that we're looking for? If we take a look at the collaboration tools and we start implementing best practices and what those look like, measure that against the application, then you have a winning recipe. To your point, now we start cutting down a little bit in some different areas. I can reallocate resources, or I can help other resources where I can say, hey, listen, whether it's the sales team that you were mentioning in terms of can they do extra calls or more presentations. The other insight is you want to be able to know, for instance, hey, listen, how many calls are we doing internally versus externally? If I know that my sales team is spending 80% of their time on internal meetings and 20% on external meetings, then I know that we're never going to get to our number. We're going to miss our targets. So that's the insight that I can start making, and the changes that I can start making to the business. On the productivity side, from a billable standpoint, somebody on the help desk, if I can get them to go out and bill more time because we freed up time in their day, we've showed them some best practices, they're getting the insights on the technology, then what we're able to show an MSP is how do they drive more billable time into their business. We've done ROI scenarios where we've shown hundreds of thousands of dollars of savings to MSPs by leveraging Produce 8 on a technology that costs $18 a user. The ROI is unbelievable with our product.
And that's one of the things that everybody's going to look at when they're evaluating a new product like this.
It's not expensive, I can tell you that, right? Like most solutions in the MSP space, they're all like $100 and $100 something dollars, a user. Ours is 18. And the way that the technology will work is like you as an employee, you want to be able to start setting goals. And so that's where the applications really starts making sense. It's one thing to kind of take a look at, how often I'm busy during the day, when I'm in calls, what are the applications I'm using, and it sets your timelines and all that. But on an individual basis or a team basis or an org basis, we have the ability now within the application to set the goals that we want. So maybe, for instance, I don't want to be on too many calls on a daily basis. I can set that as a goal of mine, and then I can measure that based on the calls that I'm on. Or, for instance, I want to ensure that I'm spending 7 hours a day working. I don't want to be spending 10 hours a day working. And so the goals feature within Produce 8 is necessarily to really kind of start showing you how the application is going to impact your day.
And it's really, to go back to the Fitbit analogy, a lot like setting the number of steps you want to do a day, the amount of time you want to spend standing, the amount of calories you want to burn a day. It's the exact same thing, just for your productivity and your well-being at work.
It's calories in, calories out, right? Like, so, even if I base it on this new feature that we have, which is basically your insight into calls, what you want to try and do is you take a look at your calls, your applications, your meetings, and then your org metrics. Those four things are critical within a business. Most businesses do not have any insight into calls. They don't have any insight into applications. They don't have insight into meetings, and they definitely don't have org metrics in terms of what are the cost of these meetings? How much are the applications costing us? And so now as an MSP, not only do you have insight into your practice, but now you can start making the changes that you need to make in order to really start driving a profitable MSP practice, which is, once you do that, then you can start educating and teaching your customers how you're going to go about doing it as well.
That's awesome. And, we're talking about organizational metrics here. So I think it's probably a good time to bring up the question that everybody's going to have is, what type of visibility does the business owner have into the data?
So the business owner has, when you think about it, like a hierarchy of information, right? So what our technology is not, it's not a monitoring tool for employees. It's insight for an employees. And the information that rolls up to a business owner is basically a culmination of all the data and metrics that we're taking a look at. So if you take calls for an example, you can start getting insight in terms of how much time is our team spending on calls, right? So if I have my help desk, I want to make sure that everybody in my help desk is on a call, resolving problems, that we're not necessarily spending time, dealing in different types of applications and wasting time. And so that's the insight that you can start pulling into your business to try and see, hey, listen, as a company, we're all spending this much time on calls, or as I mentioned before, we're doing all internal calls and not enough external calls. We can change our business around overnight if we just, change things 30% and focus externally on our customers. And again, that's the insight that you're going to get.
Awesome. Because I know a lot of people would have that question, like, how much can my boss see?
It's only data. It's not specific to kind of like what you do on a daily basis, and how you work is only shared with you within the application. So it's not so much, it's an aggregated roll-up view of, data and information that you may be looking for. The other piece to it is like an interesting thing in terms of how do we view our whole entire business is we just rolled out a new feature called Sentiment. And what Sentiment actually starts doing is it starts tracking how you feel about a day that you're in. So as an example, I might be working, I might have an extremely busy day. Things are going extremely well though. At the end of the day, the application will basically ask you, hey, listen, how do you feel about your day today? And then you give it basically 1 out of 5 stars. You can also start saying, hey, listen, you know what? I see a trend, within how I work. So, maybe your good days are based on the fact of you only have 1 or 2 meetings a day because the rest of the day is spent on doing the task at hand in terms of what you do as an employee. The bad days are when you have, 7 or 8 meetings in your calendar and it's 5 o'clock and you haven't done anything yet. And I think that's the insights that you're going to start seeing. As the technology becomes more advanced, we're going to start coming out with machine learning and AI built into the application. It's going to start telling you insights in terms of how your day should actually be planned based on your individual needs. And that's what's really interesting about this solution is that it's not based on best practices, and benchmarking you against another business that's in another state. This is really how, for instance, how Marco works and what's a good day for Marco. And then once you start seeing that insight, if you know that, for instance, you have 2 or 3 months of data and you start seeing how good days work and what does a good day involve, it's just a natural change that you're going to make to say, hey, listen, this is how I'm going to structure my day. And that will lead to a much happier employee, right? A business that, is running very, very well. And that's what any business owner is really looking for.
Well, and this is where that coach aspect of it comes in, right? Because we're not just worried about the productivity for the business, what the business is getting out of this, right? We're worried about how the employee feels about their day. That's the whole point of the sentiment, is to be able to tie how I feel to how productive I was and what did I actually do to be that productive or not be that productive that got me to that sentiment.
Correct. And as you log in, so we have a mobile application and then we also have a desktop application. So, I can log into the application on my phone. It gives me insight on a daily basis. In the mornings, I open up my device. I see, what did my day look like yesterday? Right? How did that compare to the day before? Right? So now I can start taking a look at, what are my digital working hours yesterday? How much time did I actually spend working? Did I get a lot accomplished? What was my sentiment score look like yesterday? Did I have a good day? Right? And so, as you start taking a look at this, then I start taking a look at, we track focus score, right? How much time am I spending in technology? Right? And is it impacting my day today? Is it not impacting my day? Am I wasting time in a whole bunch of different tools and spending time in Teams and Slack and all that kind of stuff, and I can't finish my budget that I'm working on, right? And so now I start getting that insights, and then I set my goals accordingly. And so my goals in terms of how I work now, they've changed because now I have more insight. So how I work today is very different than how I worked 6 months ago. And 6 months ago, I thought everything was great. Now I just have a different insight in terms of how I operate.
Yeah, and that insight is crucial to everybody developing their own productivity style and figuring out what works best for them.
Correct. Everybody's different, right? And that's why, like right now, the way we've developed the app is we've done it on purpose from this standpoint of, we're not going to tell you and monitor you and dictate to a business or an employee how you need to work, because everybody's unique, everybody's different, right? So, we go back to the fitness apps and the health apps and stuff like that. They all start customizing themselves for how you operate, how you eat, the exercise that you do, right? Not everybody can work out like Arnold Schwarzenegger in terms of, the training that he did, right? So that doesn't work. You have to do what's right for you. And I always talk about the insights that you're going to get into the business.
And it looks like now we're looking at some of the org metrics so that, the leadership of the organization can really tie productivity and hours and numbers together to try and optimize and see what apps are the most productive and maybe some that aren't so productive.
Yeah, I think this is probably the most exciting thing that I think that I can talk about over the next little while in terms of just getting the insights, right? Because we can't find another company in the market right now that's going to kind of share with a business how much meetings are costing them, right? And so we can start developing this solution so that we can start showing, how much the executive team meetings are costing them, or the sales meetings, or the marketing teams, and the whole entire roll up of the organization in terms of where all the meetings are, right? You start allocating even a 10% reduction into, a number like $250,000, right? That's significant savings that you're going to have, right? And so I think any business, once you have insight, then you can make the changes that you need. The same thing in terms of time on calls, right? Like, who's having the calls, right? Even from a support perspective, right? Do we have customers calling us all the time complaining and we're always on a call on a daily basis. Like, what are the changes that we need to do in order to reduce the amount of calls that we're in? Or the insights, as I was mentioning, is our sales team spending all of their time, calling each other and on internal calls, or are they actually doing prospecting and calling out to new customers or existing customers, trying to sell more products and services? And so when you start seeing this, again, like that's the insights that you're going to get. And we're really excited about, this new release that's coming out in the next couple of weeks, where we're going to be able to show this to everybody. And, as soon as you start deploying this technology out, within the next day, you start getting insights. And that's really the nice thing about it. Like, you're not waiting a month or 2 months to try and figure out what works. Is like this technology just starts spewing out the information in terms of what you need, and then you can immediately start making the changes within your business.
Awesome. And I think that, this brings it to the CFO level, right? Where you can actually make a case for the return on investment for deploying Produce 8 across an organization and actually having it generate these types of dollar improvements.
I had a conversation just the other day with a friend of mine who's a VCIO at an MSP. And we were talking about this, and I was teasing him. I was like, what if you had something like this and all that kind of stuff? And I was just baiting him. And, he was like, oh, I'd love to have something like this. I wish I had something like this. And then, I was able to show it to him. So I felt kind of bad the way I positioned it and what I did. But, he was saying, like, this is exactly what I need as a VCIO, that I can go sit down with the CFO of a business, or, whether it's a small, medium-sized business or a 100-user or organization that an MSP might be using and supporting, going in with this type of data that you can start sharing with them and saying, how are we going to make changes to the business? Now we can start incorporating best practices, changing how structures are being done, meeting structures, how we're using tools, and then how we're making changes to the overall business, and give you insight, right? And even to the standpoint of how much our application's costing you, right? We can start giving you data and insight into this. And so, as you mentioned, the CFO, when he's taking a look at, do we have money to go spend in different areas to grow the business? Maybe there's some tools that as a business, nobody's using, right? Nobody ever wants to get rid of a technology that they may have, but you may notice that, like, some people realize that we have a couple of applications that we're subscribed to that nobody uses. Now we actually start giving you that insight so you can make, the right recommendations, on how to run a business.
Yeah. And, nobody knows stack creep better than MSPs, right? So this is a great crowd to expose this to first, because it's a concept that they get, right? Because we've all been there, right? We went to a show, somebody sold us a new tool to do X. We played around with it, but never really fully deployed it. But then it's sitting there on our books month after month after month. Something like Produce 8 is going to be able to allow us to rein that in and actually see what's being used, whether you're an MSP or whether you're a CPA, and be able to tell what is being used and what's not being used to better utilize those licenses or get rid of them altogether.
It's a different conversation, right? Because there's so many, QBRs that an MSP can do, where they're running through how many tickets we resolved and how many tickets we received and how the technologies are working and some changes that you need to make. This is a different conversation. And so I encourage MSPs to start looking at this, to say, not only use this for your business, but hey, listen, we have to go out and have this conversation with our customers, to go in and show them these types of reports, because it is a differentiator in the market space. You don't want to have somebody else going in and having that conversation with them, because the chances are, right, like, all of a sudden that person is going to become that trusted advisor to that end user customer that you have, because you haven't differentiated your business offerings. And so I think as a VCIO can go in, not only go through the traditional Bright Gauge reports or RMM or PSA reports that they have, but now you can get in and start getting into productivity and cost of tools and solutions that they're using, and how a business operates to make the right types of changes in it. And so I think that's the exciting part of what we have.
Yeah, and definitely things that you would expect from a CIO in an organization.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the where this technology is going over the next little while is going to be quite remarkable, right? So as I mentioned, we will have some AI and machine learning components that are going to be incorporated into this, even in the next few months. And then over the course of the year, the technology is going to evolve. It's going to change, and really, you want to get to a point where the solution starts giving you insights into your day automatically, right? So right now, you start looking at things. It does help you, give you the insights in terms of your day, but then we get to a point where the technology starts making recommendations to your day, right? Do I have, is my sentiment score actually higher because I have meetings in the morning or meetings in the afternoon? And right now nobody knows that, because again, you just don't have that insight. But the solution, the technology, it's going to actually start telling you, how you need to operate, right? If I know that I'm a great employee when I do my 3 meetings in the morning, and the rest of my day is focused on, doing my marketing plans and my budgets and all of that kind of stuff, then I'm going to continue going through that process in terms of how I work, because that's a good day for me.
Yep, absolutely. Because everybody, we discussed this, in a previous slide. Everybody works differently. Some people are morning people, some people are afternoon people. And, finding out which one you are is a huge productivity gain.
For sure. As soon as you raise a really good point. As soon as you know the type of person that you are, then you can make the changes that you need, right? And you need that insight though, in terms of what you need to do.
Awesome. So, what is the $1 trillion opportunity?
The $1 trillion opportunity is the fact that every person on Earth can use this product, right? And that's what's for me extremely exciting, is that this is a business tool. It's an enterprise technology, and it's a consumer product, right? I can be working from home. I can be a consultant. And I want insight into my day, then I can leverage Produce 8. If I'm a business, as we talked about today, and I'm a big, mid-market enterprise organization, and I want insights, and I want, increased productivity, and I want to understand, my cost of my organization just beyond what's on a spreadsheet and salaries. What are the meetings costing us? What are the tools are costing us? How does all of this roll up? How much time are we spending on calls? Produce 8 fits in very well. So I always say this really is a product that fits across the whole entire marketplace.
Well, and that's an important thing, right? And the way I would package this up, and I would tell it to somebody who's even just a single person business owner, right? A consultant or a contractor, something like that. This is less than a trip to Starbucks every week, right? For a coach that's actually going to help you make more money by being more productive at whatever it is you're doing.
To get that level of support is something that we're really building, and feel very confident that our customer success team is going to work with the MSPs to explain to them how this fits into your business. And as I was mentioning, to use the technology, one, it's not difficult, easy to set up, easy to use. But then, for instance, how are best practices leveraged? And our customer success team, we're in the process of always building what we call impact plans. So if you're coming into our program because you want to reduce meetings, we're going to show you what all of that looks like. If it's about reducing collaboration or increasing productivity, leveraging Produce 8, then we'll share with you what those programs look like. The partner program, when MSPs and when we launch it in the next little while, when MSPs actually want to get on board and start selling this to their customers, we'll be building out, and we're in the process of doing that right now, we'll be building out the whole entire partner program, where we'll teach them, where we'll help them with everything that they're going to need in order to support them with talking to their customers about our solution.
And that's awesome because that's, and being born in the space, like we talked about earlier, that's something that I would expect from you guys is, that whole, how do I package this? How do I deliver it? How do I propose it to my clients as a completely new offering, but a way that I can actually help them drive efficiencies and improve that bottom line?
Correct. We'll have everything that an MSP is looking for. We'll have multi-tenant views into the dashboard. They'll be able to provision and move licensing around from one customer to the next and manage all their billing and everything like that. So very exciting times for us. Like, we're just getting going with this. We're in that process of education and awareness in the market space, but it's been going extremely well so far. And every month, more and more MSPs want to have conversations with us.
Awesome. So, Marco, is there anything else that we need to know about Produce 8 today?
No, I think we've covered everything today. If anybody would love to learn more about our company, just go to www.produce8.com, and there's all kinds of information there. And there's links that you can add to contact us, and we'd be more than happy to get in contact with you. Or you can find me on LinkedIn, and I'm more than happy to talk to anybody that wants to speak with me.
That's awesome. And of course, Produce 8 is a sponsor of All Things MSP. So you'll be seeing posts and other video content as we produce that over the next year, because we're excited about what this can do and the opportunity that it brings to the MSPs to be able to drive new types of business to their front door.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Marco. Have a great day.
Eric, thanks for your time. Take care of yourself.